Thank you, Kosen. Well, it's lovely to see all of you. Is there an echo? Yeah, there's an echo, Kosen.
How does it? Oh, here. Let me just mute here. This will fix it.
Okay, that's better? Okay, good. Yeah, so nice to see you. We are in the last day, Kosen and I, of the Minnesota Zen Center annual retreat here, week-long retreat here at Hokyoji, and it's been wonderful to practice with my city sangha down here, where my country sangha is. And it's been very quiet, deeply quiet. So today I'm talking about the fourth of the four immeasurable minds, or Brahma-viharas, which include metta, or loving kindness, kshanti, patience, mudita, joy, and upekkha, equanimity. So I've given talks in the past on loving kindness and compassion and joy, but I haven't given a talk before. Well, I've actually given this talk before at MZMC, but in the last several years we've been studying the Brahma-viharas pretty intensely here at Hokyoji, and I decided I would delve deeper into equanimity and then do a talk on it. You always learn a lot when you do a talk on a subject. So I've always found the topic of equanimity daunting. You know, when I first started my practice in my 20s, I cultivated a calm demeanor, but inside I had a lot of upheaval. I had a lot of emotional ups and downs. And so I was not particularly equanimous in those days, although I liked to look that way. I was tossed around inwardly by changing circumstances and hindrances in my own mind. So any equanimity I've found now is due to practice and teaching and teachers and effort. So although these Brahma-viharas predated Buddhism, and Buddha didn't claim them for his own, he taught them to his son Rahula, and he had this to say to Rahula: practice non-attachment to overcome prejudice. Non-attachment is the way of looking at all things openly and equally. This is because that is. Myself and others are not separate. Do not reject one thing only to chase after another. So I have the opportunity to meet regularly with people to support them in their practice. And recently I was meeting with a young mom who told me that she struggled with this idea of non-attachment because she's seeing everything through the lens of being a parent now. And as you know, young children need to be firmly attached to their parents, and the parents need to be firmly attached to their young children. So what I told her is that non-attachment in Buddhism is about non-reactivity. It's about seeing the self as something fluid, a verb, as it were. Something that's always moving and changing, and it's not fixed. It's not solid. And we talked about recognizing clinging and aversion and letting go of them over and over through our practice. So a key to practicing this is conveyed in a teaching from the third ancestor, Sengsan. And in his verses of the heart mind, where he says, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. His audience here for this is other monastics. And the word love here is less akin to liberation and more to the clinging aspect of love. The clinging aspect of love, the clinging attachment is one of the near enemies of loving kindness. But this is important because love has multiple meanings in different contexts. In the sutra, he gets to the heart of the matter, practicing avoiding, picking and choosing, going beyond I like this, I don't like that, which we are constantly doing, right? That's kind of how we're wired as human beings. So sesshin is a great way to get in touch with how our minds work when we're in picking and choosing mode, retreat or sesshin. Someone else sets the schedule, rings the bells, makes our food. All we have to do is just sit and walk and chew our rice, follow the schedule, nothing else. We have very few choices to make. But we notice that our mind continues this picking and choosing, even in a setting where we're freed from it. We think, oh, this rice is undercooked. The salad is wonderful. I love bowing. I hate bowing. And on and on. Because our actual actions are pared down, we get to see how our minds are constantly doing this. We can begin to study the self. And then we can begin to experience insight into our patterns. And insight is one key to equanimity. We need insight to see how we make a self and cling to it, how our minds want to attach to one side or the other of our experience, and to see our clinging and our aversion. So really, the whole path can be boiled down to just simply sitting and staying with our experience. Just like a dog is taught how to sit, we teach ourselves how to sit silently and stillness, in stillness, and experience everything that comes up in our body and mind from moment to moment. So we need insight. Practicing the Brahma Viharas is relational and interactive. It is not passivity. Equanimity is not passivity, nor is it indifference. Indifference is the near enemy of equanimity. So we may not be okay with everything that's going on, and that's okay. We might feel anger at the situation in the world, or the actions of specific people in the world, and that's okay. So I came across this set of verses. Metta embraces all beings with friendliness. Compassion embraces all beings who suffer. Joy embraces happy and prosperous beings. Equanimity embraces the good and the bad, the loved and the unloved, the pleasant and the unpleasant, without being tossed away, with calm and serenity. According to Christina Feldman, my favorite teacher on the Brahma Viharas, equanimity gives selflessness to loving kindness, it gives patience and fearlessness to compassion, and it guards joy from sentimentality. It's not a future state or an attainment, but a way of engaging with all that's happening in this moment. And all this moment is revealing to us. Sowing the seeds of equanimity rooted in a deep understanding of life, we participate in shaping our present moment, heart, and mind, which is the creator of the next moment. So it's really important. Let's imagine now standing at the center of a mandala, surrounded by the people we care about, those we struggle with, and all those we don't know. We can visualize ourselves surrounded by the 10,000 joys and sorrows that touch all of us. We can look back at the past as a river of experience, both joyful and difficult, that flows to the present. We look to the future and know that the only certainty is our death, though we don't know when or how it'll happen. We know we'll be asked to engage with our life fully. We also have no power to predict what will come to us in the future in terms of joy or sorrow, or even in the next moment. Sometimes we lose sight of that. We think we can control our lives. We think we have it all scheduled out and planned out, so we lose track of the fact that we don't know what to expect from moment to moment. We return to the knowledge that all we are now is the outcome of all that we have been and experienced in the past, and the knowledge that all will be in the future will be the outcome of what and how we are now, right now. Widening the field of our attention, we sense all of the others standing in the center of their own mandalas, at times intersecting with our own and at times unknown to us. All of our mandalas intersect in the human story of vulnerability, aging, sickness, and death. We also share the experience of the mind possessing the possibilities of depths of compassion and understanding, wisdom, loving kindness. We share the longing to be free from distress and sorrow, even as we know we'll continue to be touched by it. Our human mandalas intersect in our longing to be happy and safe and free, even though we know that won't always be possible. Our worlds intersect in our wish to protect those we love from suffering and loss, even though we know that's beyond our power. Equanimity has the great capacity to embrace these paradoxes. The Buddha spoke about untangling the tangling within. Sometimes we call that the knot in Zen. The knots within and without. He said for those with mindfulness and clarity, whose greed, aversion, and ignorance have faded, the tangle is untangled. So that's what we're doing. We're sitting and untangling the tangles, which we all have. We look at the world with all of its conflicts and suffering. The tangles of conflict and confusion seem endless. We see the climate crisis caused by human greed. We're feeling its effects right now, aren't we? Extreme heat, floods, and wildfires. We've had a summer of it. It's been right there. We see all the lives affected by conflict and ideology, religion, different beliefs. We know we can't fix it all. We understand the pressing need to bring as much kindness and compassion to ourselves and the situations we find ourselves in as possible. We learn that our insistence that life and other people be as the way we think they should be just intensifies the tangle. But through the gift of equanimity, we can begin to experience inner stillness and poise in the middle of the chaos in the world and within. Sometimes we invest heroic effort in building defenses against change and uncertainty. Eventually, we realize that there's very little in the world of causes and conditions that we can control, no matter how we try. But we also come to know that we aren't helpless, that we all hold the seeds of resilience and balance and the capacity for liberative insight. So it's important. Equanimity is dynamic. It's not passivity. We're not helpless against the chaos in the world. We have agency. But we have to plant these seeds of resilience and balance in order to experience that. I listened to a talk recently by an insight teacher named Noah Levine, where he said the understanding that we can't prevent or remove the suffering of someone else, no matter how much we might belong to, is like Buddhist Al-Anon. Some of you know what Al-Anon is. It's a program, a 12-step program dedicated to the freedom from control dramas and codependency, where it puts the focus back on ourselves and what we can do and our own spiritual growth, not on caretaking others or fixing others. So knowing the difference between what we can and cannot change is part of what equanimity reveals, the wisdom aspect. The Serenity Prayer is a very Buddhist. I mean, it uses the word God. If you remove the word God, grant me this, and just say, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's the whole Buddhist path in one little prayer, one verse. So, for example, if our child or a grandchild falls down and skins their knee, we'll comfort them, we'll clean their scrape and put a Band-Aid on it, but we can't cover the whole world in soft fabric so that they'll never hurt themselves, right? They have to experience what pain is, and we can't protect them. Pain, and if we try, it doesn't really turn out so well for them. They need to understand pain and suffering in small amounts, hopefully, so they know what it's like to be human, and they can stand up in that. So in these examples related to our children only get more complex from there. So the best use of our energies is in taking good care of ourselves and developing these seeds of wisdom and equanimity to balance our compassion and our care. And this is hard for a lot of people. That's why the 12-step programs are so popular, because it's hard to let go, and it's a strong habit to try to control and also to save people. So sometimes in Buddhism we say, I vow to free all beings, or I vow to save all beings. We say that even though we know it's impossible. We still make that vow for our perfect world. That would be possible in our perfect world, that we could save all beings. So to understand this deeply is to stop our frantic attempts to control the uncontrollable and learn to be still in the midst of life with an open heart that's willing to embrace all of our moments with poise and spaciousness. Just as time and life don't stand still, exempt from change, equanimity is equally fluid and responsive. It's a way of meeting our shifting life circumstances and changing bodies and minds, and all of the events we're asked to embrace. Most of us are aging. Well, all of us are aging. Even Kosen, he looks younger, but he's aging too. So this is good practice for us, because it's inevitable that there are many changes and losses that happen in our lives. That's why sometimes elders are considered to be true elders, because you see a kind of wisdom there. They've given up on struggling with their lives, and many of them, not all of them, not all elders are wise, but many of them have just given up on the struggle and are more accepting. So equanimity is not developed in the sublime and peaceful moments of our lives. You know, it's not in that great sitting we just had where we had such a good samadhi, you know. That's not where it's found. It's found in the midst of the moment where we feel the most agitated, the most lost and unbalanced. It's a practice of meeting and understanding the uncertainty and unpredictability we so fear, and commitment to the freedom of our own minds and hearts right in the midst of it. Katagiri-roshi was really interested in this topic of equanimity, or he'd say imperturbability amidst chaos. He often talked about standing up in your life in the midst of anything that's happening and not being tossed away. And I think because I was tossed away a lot, I really remember vividly him saying this over and over again, repeating this. He, in his book, Each Moment is the Universe, he tells some stories about the monk at Hokyoji when an earthquake happened, and watching the reactions. He carefully watched the reactions of all the venerable teachers and the monks. He said the monks just ran out of the temple to some old trees, really ancient trees, and held on for dear life. They didn't bother with, you know, appearing to look equanimous, apparently. But the venerable old teachers had a number of different responses. He said one of them, who was well respected, ran, and another went in to calmly extinguish the candle on the altar. And there was another teacher who was in the bath, and his monk attendant went in and said, there's an earthquake, and he just was very calm. He said, okay, you know, got himself out of the bath, you know, with dignity, didn't run. So this had a big impact on Katagiri. He was a young monk himself, and he always seemed to be interested in this aspect of life and the question, how do we know how we're going to react when circumstances are completely unpredictable? He said we can't know, that we don't know how we're going to respond. But I think we can make ourselves accident prone, as they say, by planting these seeds, you know, through our practice, through Zazen, through contemplating what is equanimity, how do I cultivate it. We might have an intellectual understanding of it, but it's extreme distress that tests and refines our understanding and our responses. When I was a young kid, we had a tornado that blew away our house, and we were in it. My mother and my sisters, my father was gone, and, you know, on the surface, we seemed pretty calm. We sat in a huddle and we put our heads down and into the center of the huddle so that the debris that was flying wouldn't hit us in the head. But we were just in survival mode, really. It's not that we were so poised and everything. It's just that we basically did what we could to survive. And then as soon as we could get out of the basement, we got out and went to safety. But it had its long-term effects. So in Buddhism, there's this teaching of the 8 worldly winds, moments of success and failure, praise and blame, pleasure and pain and gain and loss. They come to all of our lives. And in the light of approval and praise, which we really like, we glow. We glow. We're just very happy to receive that. In the light of disapproval and blame, we find ourselves withering and ashamed. Often, anyway. And understandably, we long for appreciation and praise and acceptance. But we too often place ourselves at the whims of another person's words of affirmation or blame. Understandably, blame, criticism, and judgment are hard to accept and hard to bear. The near enemy of this pain is to seek for an elusive perfection or to deafen ourselves to feedback from others so that we don't have to hear any criticism or blame. So we're too prone to personalizing praise and blame and describing ourselves by them and subjecting ourselves to either elation or despair. Equanimity disappears when we're contracted like that, when we're identifying with those labels about ourselves. We love health, lovely emotions, and pleasant thoughts. We don't open so easily to the thoughts of pain. We've developed the habit of leaning into and pursuing the pleasant and doing all that we can to arrange the conditions of our lives in ways that protect us from pain. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think we all do that. It's important to do that. You can't be, it's like we have an ego. We need the ego. We also tend to arrange the conditions of our lives for minimal pain and maximal pleasure, and that's normal. But we don't often appreciate that it's our very pursuit of pleasure that makes us increasingly intolerant of pain and develops into anxiety and agitation, a life that's beset by that. So that's why Zen practice is so important, particularly retreat practice, because we make the decision minute by minute, moment by moment, to be with whatever arises. And what arises when we sit sitting after sitting after sitting multiple days is some pain, some soreness, and some old stuff, old conflicts and emotions that we pushed down previously. So it's a wonderful opportunity to be with ourselves very intimately and watch what we do with our minds and our bodies. So it's important to take care of the body and mind in these retreats, but I really appreciate this practice because it gives me the opportunity to be so intimate with whatever needs to come up in me and with my changing body, with the support of other people. I so appreciate it. So we are deeply affected by the winds of change, but we can bend like the willow with those winds and return to uprightness. And one of the things we can do over time is to see how our responses have changed over time. We can see when you've practiced for 10 years or 20 or 40 or 50, you begin to see how you evolve in terms of dealing with change and inner and outer chaos. We can also discover a capacity to meet those small, lovely moments of our day with appreciativeness that isn't distorted by a desire to possess and hang on to them and maintain the pleasure of those moments. Again, trying to maintain pleasurable moments just further intensifies the tangle. Cultivating gratitude for the everyday small blessings is a way to counter our negativity bias in our brains, as well as develop a healthy way of interacting with those blessings without clinging. In the midst of pleasure and pain, success and failure, gain and loss, praise and blame, we can remind ourselves of the possibility of meeting the winds of the world with a calm, still sense of balance. And as in the cultivation of the other Brahma Viharas, this remembering is supported by a few simple phrases that aid us in returning to equanimity. when we're in danger of feeling overwhelmed. So some of those might be, may I be calm and accepting in the midst of change and upheaval. May I be calm and accepting in the midst of change and upheaval. May I accept myself just as I am. May I accept myself just as I am. As much as I want you to be happy, I can't save you from your experience. As much as I want you to be happy, I can't save you from your experience. Each time we return to an intentional way of being with ease and difficulty, we're untangling those patterns of aversion and craving that lead us to abandon our moments. Through our flights of aversion, we build fences that make our world a little smaller, telling ourselves we can't bear our life as it is. Equanimity teaches us to live as if we're a mountain, touched by the winds of the world but unshaken. Thich Nhat Hanh has a wonderful mountain meditation. A Zen master was once asked, "What is the secret of your happiness?" He answered, "Complete, unrestricted cooperation with the unavoidable." I don't know where I heard this. Maybe I heard this from you, Dokai, this quote. So the unavoidable is our life, just as it is, moment to moment. And these practices of the Brahma Viharas help to make our moments pregnant with more positive potentialities for our future moments. So that's what I have to say today about equanimity. And it's something that, what did you say, Kosin? It's an evergreen topic. It's always something we can revisit. You can kind of take stock and revisit. So, what do you have to say? Do you have any comments or questions this morning? Dokai?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that quote where you said total cooperation with the unavoidable, I think it was from your husband, not me.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Just to let you know. Just to let you know.
Okay. And it was somebody else's quote. It obviously wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't
Right.
Carl's quote, but
Right.
that's
Mm-hmm.
who I first heard it from. So anyway, just thought I would let you know. But I really appreciate your talk today, Ekyo. I just want to tell you that directly. So
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to add something or tell a story or?
Well, I was curious about the making yourself accident prone that you said, which usually accident prone means it's a bad thing.
Likely to have an accident.
Yeah, but you were saying it like it was a good thing.
Right. Well, it's I meant a happy accident. So often in Zen we say, that we're not seeking enlightenment, but we try to make ourselves accident prone. Prone to have the happy accident of awakening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that now. Yeah. That is one of the paradoxes of Buddhism, in that if you seek enlightenment, it recedes away like a mirage, and it's only when you're not seeking that you can actually get it.
Right, that's right. Hmm. And, Ted was telling a story in his talk yesterday about one time he came home when he was with Ann Arbor Zen Center, and he had an experience of looking at something in his kitchen, a boiling pot, and that this boiling pot its isness was so there, its form was so there, but also it was like not there. Its emptiness was also apparent. And this was not while he was on a cushion. This was after he had left the cushion. It was just an ordinary experience of being in the kitchen and seeing clearly a pot boiling on the stove. And there's a lot of good koans of that type in this book, of koans with women characters called The Hidden Lamp. Anyone else have a story to tell about their experience of gaining equanimity over the years, or? I guess not. Well, Dokai just had surgery again. And Dokai, tell us about your reaction to your latest surgery, your response.
Well, when you said, am I gaining equanimity over the years, my first response was, no, I'm just losing it. I'm just losing equanimity more and more every day. So anyway, yeah, the day, like today I'm not feeling too bad, but yesterday, oh my God, my eye was like just pounding with pain. And I thought, and when it's happening, I'm thinking, well, how long does this go for? Like, 2 or 3 weeks? It's like, the doc told me it's not, the recovery period is not going to be nearly as long as my other surgeries, because this was an outpatient surgery. But in the midst of your eye just pounding, and it was like a big rock, in my eye. I just thought, how long is this gonna last? Like, but the next day, 2 days, a day later, I'm basically okay, and I can even see,
Yay.
I can see, yeah. So, but so anyway, it's just the equanimity thing is pretty challenging from time to time. But anyway, I don't know. It all just comes and goes. I'm curious. What do you think, Henry? Is that okay if I ask Henry what does he think about equanimity? Just curious.
Yeah.
You gotta unmute yourself, Henry. Do you know? Okay. Okay. That's what he thinks about equanimity. Okay. Anyone else? How about you, Frank?
What I was reminded of as Ekyo was describing her experience of the tornado and surviving that was my experience of quite different, but I worked as a volunteer EMT for the ambulance service in Lansing for 25 years or more. And there were situations that, you get thrown into these incredible situations. And there were times when somehow I could arrive at equanimous place and be calm. And it was just sort of forced on me. I mean, it was just like everybody else was going crazy. And so you just had to figure out a way to bring some stability to the situation. But there were other times when that was not the case. And and there was no, it was just change from one situation to the next, and you couldn't judge how you're going to react in the situation, how other people were going to react. So it was, I guess, a good training in it.
Advanced training.
Yeah. Thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your service. That's amazing, Frank.
I've unmuted. Hi. I was thinking when you said, we don't know when we're going to die, if we die tomorrow or when it's coming, but we're pretty sure it's coming at some point. It reminded me a story from my childhood where I got a great deal of equanimity. Thank you. From my grandfather. My paternal grandparents were my daycare providers, and sometimes I'd stay all week with them because my parents lived 30 miles away. One morning, my dad came in and said, "We aren't going to Grandma and Grandpa's today. Grandpa's in the hospital." And so we drove 30 miles down to the hospital, and just as we got to his room, my aunt had traveled 80 miles up to see him, and she was coming out of the room, and they were talking about boring grown-up stuff. And then she said, "Well, he might die. What are we going to do if he dies?" And I pulled away from my dad and I ran into the room and I said, "Grandpa, they said you're going to die. You might die. Don't die, Grandpa. Don't die." And he was in an oxygen tent, and he motioned me over and he said, "Well, I am going to die. I don't know if it's going to be pretty soon or a long time from now, but everybody does die. So I am going to die, but when I do, it'll be okay, because when a child has loved you the way you have loved me, you never really die." And he winked at me, which was kind of our secret code word for this is important. And he went back under the tent and then popped out again a minute later, and he said, "You remember that always." Else could mean my love in Icelandic. So anyway, that I often treasure that. I just think it was a wonderful gift to me. And I remember he didn't die at that time, and at his funeral a couple years later, I was like 7, and I looked around and so many people were so sad, and I just thought, look at all these people that loved him. It's okay.
That's a wunderful story, Anne. And you're so lucky that you had that kind of wisdom given to you at such a young age. Thank you. Erin, did you have anything? It seemed like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I did. I was just processing. Is it Anne, what you were saying? Just the presence of mind that your grandfather had was really Really beautiful. The thing I was, I raised my hand about, I guess I was struck by what Frank said, and what you had said also in your talk about, we don't know how we'll react. And I just, a little story, I was involved in a medical study many years ago. And it was one of those where you have to go in and have tests periodically because you're being studied. It was really interesting. But there was a couple of times where I had to have a biopsy and a muscle biopsy in my leg. And I had never had one before, so I thought, oh, this will be really interesting because I've never had one. So I was watching, and as they this procedure, and I remember everything went sort. I guess I went into shock, and I couldn't remember how to speak, and I said, "Oh, these things are cold," because I was kind of going into, and I was really, obviously in shock, but. It was just such an interesting, at the same time, I felt like I was kind of watching this reaction, and I just found it really interesting. And the next time I had to go in for a biopsy, of course, I had one before, and I said, okay, well, this time I'm not going to watch. and so I got through the biopsy without going into shock. I had some sort of tips sort of for myself, how to kind of remain present during the biopsy. And I just, just that idea of in a kind of an emergency, or I guess what the body perceives as an emergency, or how one reacts. It's true, you don't know. I just thought it would be kind of interesting to watch. But yeah, it's interesting. So, thank you for your talk, by the way. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for your story, Erin. Well, are we finished then with chatting? Kosen, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh. Look at my paper to remember what my job is. So thank you, Ekyo, Reverend Ekyo Susan Nelson, for your talk, and thank you everyone for being here today. Please join us next Sunday when Dokai will be giving the talk. And you can see the full lineup of speakers for coming talks on our website, hokyoji.org, where you will also find video of today's talk and past talks. Some upcoming events at Hokyoji. We have a men's retreat at the end of October, October 28th to the 31st. So please check our website for details if that's interesting to you. In November, we'll have a fall work weekend and a Caring for the Land weekend. I'm forgetting the exact dates, but those are also on our calendar on our website. So please come and join us. I'm sure the Hokyoji is always beautiful in the fall, and we'll have a really nice time. As always, your generosity is what sustains us here at Hokyoji, and we couldn't do this without you. We're very grateful for your support. Please consider making a donation online if you'd like to, if you're able to. There's a donation link posted in the chat right now, and of course, you can always go to the website later if you're moved to. And I think that's it for the announcements. So let's close by reciting the 4 vows together. Beings are numberless. I bow
to
to
them.
illusions
Illusions are
inexhaustible.
inexhaustible.
I vow
To end them.
Dharma gates are
Boundless.
I
I vow to enter them.
the Buddha
Is unsurpassable.
I vow to realize it.
The title of my talk next week is To Be Surprised, which might be the actual title. So thank you all. Thank you, Ekyo, so much. And everyone.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
See you.